Hello class. For this week we are going to talk about individual perceptions and behavior. And I believe this is going to be a really important chapter because it has to do with individual decision making. If you look at PowerPoint 6.2, it basically says that the old saying is that perception is reality, and managers must learn what reality their workers are reacting to in order to effectively predict behavior. So what is this chapter going to be about? It's going to examine how perception acts to create an employee's view of reality and modifying decision making. So look at PowerPoint 6.3 and it will essentially give you what the expected learning outcomes are of this chapter. We want to be able to define perception and explain the factors that influence it. We want to be able to explain attribution theory and describe the shortcuts used in judging others. That's a good one. Explain the link between perception and decision making. Do we make decisions based on our emotions as we studied in the last chapter? Or do we make them based on fact and are we focused on what's needed? The next thing is contrast the rationale model or the rational model of decision making with what we refer to as bounded rationality. Next would be to identify the common decision biases or errors, and then explain how individual differences and organizational constraints affect decision making. And then contrast three ethical decision criteria. And finally, we're going to define creativity and discuss what we refer to as the three-stage model of creativity. So essentially, what is this chapter about? It's really about talking about perception. And if you look at PowerPoint 6.4, perception is the process by which individuals organize and interpret their sensory impressions in order to give meaning to their environment. And we're going to talk a lot about that. Look at PowerPoint 6.5 when they go into what the perceiver does. And 6.6, we're going to be talking about person perception and attribution theory. And attribution theory is an important one. Okay? What do we attribute our behavior to? What are some of the internally caused behaviors? And then in PowerPoint 6.7, we're going to look at three factors that differentiate internal from external caused behaviors. Just like we do an internal and an external SWOT analysis, we're going to do an internal and an external analysis on SWOT behaviors. If you look at Exhibit 6.1, it's going to, and that will be PowerPoint 6.8, it's going to summarize the key elements in attribution theory. Look at 6.9, it's going to talk more about attribution theory. And then 6.10 is going to be some of the shortcuts when we judge other people. And that's pretty interesting. 6.11, in PowerPoint 6.11 talks about the link between perception and individual decision making. Now we start getting into the heart of things. Look at Exhibit 6.2 and PowerPoint 6.12. It talks about decision making in organizations, and it's going to talk about the rational model and what bounded rationality is and intuition. Now you can kind of link intuition to emotional intelligence. And we're going to look at 6.13 and we're going to be able to look at the assumptions of the model that are around bounded rationality. 614 and 615 talk about how the human mind handles complex problems, and 616 is the good one. That's about intuition, and we're going to talk a lot about that. And then we get perception and individual decision making, and we look at some of the common biases and errors we make when we make decisions. And that would be looking at Exhibit 6.3 and PowerPoint 6.17. And 6.18 talks about biases. And 6.19 talks about what are some of the organizational constraints on decision making. Organizations can constrain decision makers, creating deviations from what we call and what we've studied in the rational model, and different forms that these constraints can take. And then obviously ethics. That's the important thing. What about ethics in decision making? There's a lot of controversy about, well, we're not breaking any rules, okay? So I want you to look at the video about breaking rules and something from an excerpt from a movie called Company Men, and then bring that to class on Thursday. We'll discuss it. But look at, on the ethical end, PowerPoint 620, and 621 looks at creativity in organizations. Exhibit 6.4 talks about creative behavior, and that would be PowerPoint 622. And causes of creative behavior, PowerPoint 624. 625 talks about creative outcomes, and 626 goes into implications for managers. So that is kind of the quick overview, and I want you to be ready for this on Thursday, but look at the excerpt below on Company Men, and we'll discuss it Thursday. Then now click Reading, Listening, and Viewing for a few more things.